This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Hello and welcome back to Movie Review of the Day on Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. I'm Miranda and I will be your host for today. Now, this week we are celebrating Live Action Remake Week. That's movies that took beloved animated stories and reimagined them for a whole new audience, or maybe ones that were already attached to them. So there were actually quite a few movies that I could have picked for this theme, but I wanted to kick things off with one that has been a favorite of mine for, honestly, as long as I can remember. And that is dipping into the Scooby Doo franchise. Because Scooby Doo isn't just another cartoon I watched growing up. It is, in fact, one of my all-time favorite cartoons. And I'm sure you could already figure that one out. I mean, mystery, mayhem, weirdness. Hello, Miranda. Anyway, I've watched just about every version of Scooby Doo I could get my hands on over the years. The original series, the spin-offs, the animated movies. If Mystery Inc. was solving a case, I was probably watching it. So when it was announced that Scooby Doo was finally getting a live-action movie back in 2002, I was beyond excited. For someone who grew up loving these characters, seeing Mystery Inc. come to life on the big screen, honestly, it felt like a dream. So released in June of 2002, Scooby Doo had all the ingredients of a summer blockbuster. It was based on one of the most recognizable cartoons in television history. It had a stacked, talented cast, plenty of visual effects, a healthy dose of comedy, some pretty good music, and enough nostalgia to bring parents and their kids into the theaters. It, of course, opened number one at the box office, and it went on to become one of the biggest family films of that summer. More than 20 years later, people are still talking about it, and I think that's because it understood exactly what fans wanted while still trying to be something new. So let's get into the movie. Our movie opens with Mystery Inc., exactly how longtime fans would expect. Fred, Daphne, Velma, Shaggy, and Scooby are solving another mystery involving a villain in a costume. It feels like classic Scooby Doo. Until, well, the team falls completely apart. And honestly, I kind of love that decision and that direction. Instead of pretending that this group has always been perfect, the movie asks what would happen if 5 very different personalities finally got tired of each other. It gives each of them somewhere to grow, which makes our reunion feel earned instead of just automatic. Flash forward 2 years later, they're all invited to investigate strange happenings at a spooky island where college students suddenly begin acting, well, not like themselves. Naturally, one of them realizes that they've all been invited. And before long, Mystery Inc. is forced back together despite their differences. They realize that they still work best as a team. One of the biggest strengths of this movie is, in fact, the casting. I genuinely think that this was one of the best examples of live-action casting for an animated property. Freddie Prinz Jr. has Fred's confidence and optimism. Sarah Michelle Gellar gives Daphne far more independence while keeping the character that we still all love and recognize. Linda Cardellini absolutely captures Velma's intelligence, awkwardness, and very dry humor. And of course, my beloved, as you guys know, Matthew Lillard. Honestly, I really don't know anyone else that could have played Shaggy. It doesn't feel like someone doing an impression. He somehow just becomes Shaggy. The voice, the body language, the nervous energy, and the physical comedy all feels effortless with him. And considering, as I said, how much I already love Matthew Lillard as an actor, his performance is a huge reason why this movie works. Even today, when people think of live-action Shaggy, Matthew Lillard is usually the first person that comes to mind. Of course, we can't forget the one and only Scooby himself. Voiced by Neil Fanning, Scooby still manages to feel expressive, lovable, and completely believable as the heart of the group. The show is called Scooby Doo, is it not? So the CGI here definitely reflects the early 2000s, but his personality shines through it so much that it becomes kind of easy to overlook. One thing I think this movie deserves more credit for is that it doesn't simply recreate an episode of the cartoon, which it could have done, and I think a lot of fans would have been fine with and adored just as much. But here, it respects the source material while expanding it. This mystery is larger, the stakes are higher, and for the first time, Mystery Inc. is dealing with something that appears to be genuinely supernatural instead of another crook hiding behind a mask. That in itself is a bold decision, especially considering that one of the defining elements of the original series was that they revealed that there was always a logical explanation. The humor in another reason is why this movie has aged so well. It embraces the silliness of Scooby Doo without making fun of it. The banter between Shaggy and Scooby still makes me laugh. The movie, of course, pokes fun at Fred's confidence, Daphne's reputation for always needing to be rescued, and Velma's tendency to be the smartest person in every room, while also giving each of them a chance to grow beyond those stereotypes. And that balance is and can be surprisingly difficult to pull off. Looking back now, it's interesting to remember that critics weren't especially kind to this movie when it first came out. Audiences, however, told a different story. It was a box office success. It earned a sequel that maybe wasn't as loved. And I will say, though, over the years, it has still become something of a cult favorite. A whole generation grew up with this version of Mystery Inc., and today it's remembered much more fondly than many of those original reviews suggested it was or would be. Sometimes movies just need a little time to find the audience that appreciates them the most, and I think that's what happened here. Overall, Scooby Doo is still one of my favorite live-action adaptations of an animated series. It's funny, nostalgic, surprisingly heartfelt, and filled with a cast that genuinely feels like Mystery Inc. Not to mention, there is a song from this movie that I continuously play in my head at random times of the day, month, week, year. It doesn't matter. But either way, for more than 20 years, it has still reminded me why Scooby Doo has remained one of my favorite cartoons of all time. So ladies and gentlemen, that is today's movie review of the day on Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. But don't go too far, because I will be back later this week for another live-action remake as we take a trip down the rabbit hole with Alice in Wonderland. But until next time, keep chasing the mysteries that make movie magic worth discovering.